Hello everyone, welcome to GoTarryn TV. I'm Taryn the Traveling Trainer with GoTarryn Personal Training here in the greater Atlanta area, about to welcome an awesome, amazing guest back on to GoTarryn TV, who's also in Atlanta, Georgia, Ms. Catherine Luciano. Now before Catherine returns back on today's show, I'd like to invite everyone out there, if you'd please be so kind as to subscribe to my YouTube channel. And while you're at it, please go ahead and like this video, leave us a comment, and share it with all of your friends and family out there. Now, as you know, Catherine Luciano is a regular guest, but she also comes out and guest speaks and lectures at Georgia State University, which, by the way, she's going to be doing in a couple of months. But for today's show, I've invited her on to talk some nutrition and more specifically delve into cholesterol and ask her the question, is high cholesterol necessarily that bad? This is going to be a very interesting, insightful show. I'm excited because I hope you're going to learn just as much as I always do when Catherine's on here. She is a wealth of knowledge, and again, I cannot wait to talk to her and get to the heart of the matter about cholesterol right here on GoTarryn TV. So stay tuned. When we come back, we're having Catherine Luciano. And remember, with GoTarryn Personal Training, it's your time, it's your investment, it's your life. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we have, once again, Catherine Luciano here, also in Atlanta, Georgia, joining us. Catherine, how are you doing out there today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Very good, thanks. And really appreciate you being out here, and really excited, once again, to have you come out to Georgia State coming up in a couple of months to guest speak for the next group of students. So that's going to be great. Hey, we just got a cameo there. There we go. That's Mr. Lucky, is that right?
Yeah, he's getting out of here.
He is a good-sized kitty cat, and that's great. I've got 3 cats myself, so we're big animal friends here on the show.
Oh, yeah.
So.
I just finished with puppy yoga, so I was playing with puppies all morning.
Now, what is puppy yoga? I've never heard of that.
So at Concourse, we had fur kids come over, so they're a no-kill animal shelter.
Yep, I know fur kids, yeah.
They brought 5 little puppies over, and we had a $15 entry fee, and so that all 5 puppies were available for adoption, and so they were running around and
nice,
playing and wrestling and peeing and pooping everywhere. But it was so cute, though.
That's so
I'm
cool.
hoping I hope they get adopted.
Yeah, I had no idea. How long have y'all done that there for? I had no. This is the first time.
This was our first one.
Oh,
this was our first one. Yeah,
nice.
So we're trying to do more special events, and I'm not sure if anyone was a member, but we had one of our sales reps set it all up, and so it was a great little event. It drew a lot of attention.
That is so cool. That is excellent. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are doing that there. Well, that's wonderful. So yeah, puppy yoga. I'll have to remember that. Yeah, hopefully they do get adopted. I bet they do. They, that was good exposure for them. So that's great. Wow. And how's everything else been going too, Catherine, since we last spoke?
Everything's going pretty well. Just trucking along, learning new stuff all the time, trying to make sure that I always do. And it's been good, really good.
Excellent. That's great. Well, I wanted to talk to you today because obviously, we've just touched on it a little bit the last couple of times we've chatted. I know nutrition is definitely your passion, and you're very, again, passionate about nutrition. So I wanted to bring you on and just talk about that and, kind of focus on key points of nutrition and maybe specifically about people who might have high cholesterol out there and how to eat better, and how some people have some misconceptions and myths out there that they are doing everything supposedly right, but they're not having any success, or they might still have a high elevated cholesterol. Or like last time you talked about when we spoke, you were defining the difference between healthy versus fit, and with your own personal experiences. So I guess we could kind of continue that conversation a little bit and, just kind of go from there. So I guess the first question to you, Catherine, is, personally for yourself, why is it that you're very passionate and fired up about nutrition?
So we could expand that too, just that, when I was younger, diabetes ran in my family. And I remember my dad always talking about how he lost his parents early. And, and then he was diagnosed with being a diabetic. And I just remember that I really wanted to be able to help people change that, because I've always believed that we have the ability to make those changes. And I don't believe that everything is genetic. For sure that there is, if it runs in your family, you have a bigger predisposition to those things.
Sure.
But I do not believe that it's that far out of our control that we can't do something about it. Of course, now I've been in fitness since, I think it's been 15 years. I've been in fitness. I've been a personal trainer. But when I graduated from college and I started one of those desk jobs in a cubicle, I knew I couldn't just sit there and do that forever. So I realized that, nutrition and being a registered dietitian so that I could do diabetes education, that was kind of the path I wanted to go on. So I started doing that part-time. I went back to school and I looked into the RD and I'm taking classes. And of course, from that's where I got the personal training, because I was like, well, let me get into something where I can make more money per hour, not work as much, so I can get this done faster. But it worked kind of the exact opposite. I got all the way into personal training and the nutrition kind of sidelined, but full circle now, here we are. And like I said, 15 years later, and because of my own personal story and findings, it has brought me back to nutrition. And I'm kind of glad that it worked out this way, because at this point, I'm finding that we are shielded from so much research, and we probably will never hear about everything, because it all comes down to money and who funds what and who gets money for this and why do we take pills for everything? Why is the first line of defense medication? And so you're going to be hard pressed to find people, especially as we age, that they're not on medication. And having a personal story, I have a kidney transplant. I've had it since I was 29, so it's been 14 years. I have to take medication, but they're dragging me kicking and screaming. I fight against every medication that I can, realizing though that you have to do some of it, right? I mean, Western medicine is not what it should be to me, but of course there are some things I can't go without my anti-rejection meds, right? But we definitely have things that we can do to get ourselves healthier. And what we talked about last time was how in this last year, I realized the difference between fit and healthy, because I was super fit. And the fitter I got, the more my health started to decline. And it's not always something that's super noticeable. It was a lack of energy. It was not being able to do the classes that I wanted to do, or maybe it's not sleeping well, or a decreased sex drive, or, it shows up in all these various ways until you can't ignore it anymore. And so, we think that as we age, all this stuff is natural. Well, it's only natural if we don't do anything about it, right? So, sorry, so my phone's ringing. But so there are numerous things that we can do, and unfortunately, it'll probably never be in the mainstream. And so, I like to do a lot of research, especially because of course, I'm number one, right? I'm trying to get myself healthy. And then number two is share that with everybody. So we were kind of talking a little bit about cholesterol, and cholesterol gets a really bad rap. And, there was just a woman who did that big thing about coconut oil and how it's poison. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
No, I didn't hear about that.
So it's being passed around. And of course, it came to me because of being in fitness. People are like, what's your take on this? Because I am coconut oil. And so, she starts out with the whole premise that coconut oil is poison because of all the saturated fat. So in order to listen to the rest of what she says, you have to believe that saturated fat is bad. So that's the first thing that's wrong. And that's what a lot of people kind of, they don't know when to shut that down, if that makes sense. So for example, going back to the cholesterol is, oh my God, cholesterol is high. So now everybody's working on getting their cholesterol lowered. But is that premise really the truth? That if cholesterol is high, that's a bad thing? And so what I'm here to say is it's not always a bad thing. And, I'm going to leave you with a whole bunch of places to look for further research. But essentially, cholesterol is important. It's an important constituent of all cell membranes, and it's a precursor to some very important steroid compounds, right? So our sex hormones, it plays a crucial role in the production of specialized and highly protective substances like pregnenolone and progesterone and DHEA and testosterone and bile, and vitamin D. So some of those things people have probably heard of, and some maybe not so much. And I think it's important to recognize that, when we're kids, we are full of energy. We sleep like the dead. We kind of subsist on candy, right? It's sugar, everything sugar, fruit juices, and, anything that is just kind of like quick energy. And they're warm to the touch. And, and then as the years go by, all of that stuff starts to be the opposite. We don't sleep well. And we're always cold. Hands, nose, feet are always cold. And then the fitter you get, the worse that stuff becomes. And like I already said, we don't sleep well. We're fully stressed out. We have jobs and maybe kids and partners and, all of that stuff. So life becomes extremely stressful. And then we start transitioning from sugar burners. That's what kids are, sugar burners, to fat burners. And that has a lot of ill effects. And I think that is kind of what starts this whole cascade of things that start to go wrong. And so specifically today, again, we're talking about cholesterol. There's a lot of reasons why cholesterol would elevate. So if you have a virus, if you have a cold, stress, low thyroid, if you don't have enough vitamin A, all of these things will increase your cholesterol. But cholesterol is an anti-inflammatory. Its job is to help get rid of some of that, stuff that's going on from stress. And so when that's elevating, it's telling you that there's something that something's interfering with your metabolism. Something's interfering with your ability to change the cholesterol into the sex hormones. And so instead we produce cortisol. And as many people might know, cortisol is what's responsible for that belly fat and that bloating feeling, and so cortisol itself is not bad either, but it's when stress never comes back down that the cortisol doesn't, run its cycle either. And so that becomes like the main thing that is being produced in the body, and that has ill effects as well. So cholesterol in and of itself being high is not bad. And as a matter of fact, as we age, I think they said like over the age of 50, the higher the cholesterol has actually been associated with a lower chance of dying from really anything, but especially cancer. And so that is probably because, as we age, there is going to be increased stress from all types of things, right? So the aging process. So the increase in the stress, that cholesterol should increase, right? But a lot of times if everything else is going well, I suppose, I mean, we could obviously dig into that and define what we mean by that, but cholesterol rising, might mean that it's just, it's trying to get rid of the stress. And if it can't sort of rectify itself, let's say, that it's going to get out of hand. So either you're going to produce too much cholesterol because, you can't get rid of the stress, or that, like I said, it's not interacting with the vitamin A to convert your T4 into T3, which is your active form of thyroid.
Wow. So
that might bring up a whole bunch of questions.
Yeah. I mean, really, going back to what you just started with on that, who was the woman? I'm just curious. The article about I missed that, the coconut oil article. I totally didn't see that.
I can actually probably look up her name while we're talking.
The reason, because I'm like you, I've always heard so much benefits about coconut oil, like not only for vascular health and visceral health and such, but also for like things like health, skin and hair, nails, things of that nature, just because it's a natural collagen. And so, I'm just kind of curious. Sometimes I think when people write an article like that, they're trying to make a name to you. And I'm always taking it with a grain of salt because you never know where these people's agendas are coming from. So I think that they kind of just try to maybe make an opinion and then go off on that when it's not really backed up with any kind of resource or material. That's what I'm thinking is in this case is what it sounds like.
It looks like it was maybe the Harvard Medical Association. The post is coming from dailymail.co.uk, so it's out of the UK.
Interesting.
And so one of the people that I follow who wrote the book we mentioned last time, How to Heal Your Metabolism, Kate Deering.
Yeah.
She in her Facebook post, she's talking about people must be asking her about the same article that's been published.
Yeah.
And so she goes on to list a few studies just to kind of combat the things that she's saying. But again, her whole premise is that saturated fat is bad. So, when you start with an incorrect premise, then everything else you say, could be true, but you're starting with an untruth, so to speak, right? So, so it kind of negates the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, especially like it's almost like she loses credibility the minute she just throws a generalization out there. That's kind of like if someone, who just said, well, let's see, coffee's bad for you because it has caffeine, so don't drink coffee anymore. And,
exactly.
we know studies that actually some coffee is actually good to drink for promoting heart health and things like that, cardiovascular health. So that's interesting.
Full of antioxidants.
Yeah, and you gave a lot of really good points on cholesterol in itself. I think a lot of what people miss sometimes too is, you've got bad cholesterol and good cholesterol, and the whole point of it is we want that good cholesterol, the HDL, to be substantial. So I think that just generalizing, and that's the same as someone said cholesterol's bad. Well, again, that's a bad premise to start with as well too. So, but you brought up a really series of good points. One thing I wanted to ask you, Catherine, was what's your take on natural supplementation and holistic supplements when it comes to cholesterol? Because I ask this because I used to sell retail health food supplements and products, and that was one thing that people always came in to ask about. So I was just curious and wanted to know if you yourself have experience and take anything like that or know anybody that does.
So, and are you speaking in terms of just lowering cholesterol?
Yeah, I guess, like, for example, that book, there's called The Prescription for Nutritional Healing, and you know what I'm talking about, I bet. Yeah,
I have several copies of it, yep.
There you go,
yep.
Yeah, and I always remember when people would come in, the customers would just thumb their, go to diabetes, go to blood pressure, and then there was a section for cholesterol, and then I remember there was like a list of, I can't tell you right now what they are, but I know that there's several that they say is actually for promoting good cholesterol, like for your HDL, and then maintaining a healthy balance. But I was curious to see what you thought about, like, for example, like fish oils, flax seeds, things of that nature. And if you, had, because again, I've taken that before. I just didn't know if that, if there's been enough time or credibility given to any studies on that.
So I'll answer you this way. So number one, I do take supplements, okay? But I will say that I feel like you should always try to get what you need from food.
Oh, yeah.
First, food
yeah,
first.
Definitely,
okay?
Yeah.
But then, so more specifically, though, if we're talking about supplements to lower cholesterol, that's going to go back to the fact that why do we think that lowering cholesterol is what is needed? I think that, I think that number one, we're being misled that cholesterol always needs to be lowered because again, it's an anti-inflammatory. It's trying to get rid of stress. So it's more like you're talking about a symptom and not exactly what the problem is. So we need to get to the heart of what is the problem. So is the problem, a lot of times elevated cholesterol is probably letting you know that your thyroid isn't functioning the way that it's supposed to. So we need to find out, okay, what is your metabolism doing? So do you eat enough sugar for your liver to convert, the cholesterol into your sex hormones instead of cortisol and things that it shouldn't be doing, right? So I mean, we kind of need to take a deeper dive, and that's why I love Kate's book so much, is because she seemed to do so much research and then take it all together and put it in a way that is easy to understand and follow. And it kind of it was that beginning step for me to do more research. And so, you can find interesting articles and research at raypeat.com, or like I said, Kate Deering, her fitness blog on Facebook, calziegrass.org, functional performance systems, so there's lots of places that have the research that you want to be reading, and not just who's benefiting, from you believing that information. I think I've stated that before. That's what I always try to ask myself. So in the grand scheme of things, yes, I do take supplements as well. If you go to toxinless.com, that's where I try to find a lot of my supplements, because that guy does a lot of research on, the absence of toxins in the things that we take. And so that's a big part of it. You need to make sure that what you do take in really doesn't have anything in it that I don't want, or that could be an inflammatory, ingredient, or, just something to that effect. So yes, I take supplements. I don't know that people should be taking things to lower their cholesterol. They need to find out what is going on. What's the culprit of it being high?
Yeah, it's kind of like getting to the source of the problem versus just treating a symptom. I see what you're saying.
Right.
That's very well said. And Catherine, also, I wanted to ask you because just this week I was teaching, and in my class we referenced that. I don't know if you saw that story. I'm not going to remember where this happened. It was somewhere in the States, but I think it was a groundskeeper of a school who sued the school for, like, we're talking multi-millions of dollars because he was actually caught a terminal illness from some chemicals that he was exposed to. I don't know if this sounds familiar. Maybe someone's listening knows what I'm talking about. But anyway, he won. He won a huge, big, multi-million dollar settlement. And although he was diagnosed with a very terminal disease, and I think it was like some form of cancer to an exposure to this chemical. And one of my students in class raised his hand and knew exactly what I was talking about, and he did some further research, and he said that they're saying that there's some foods that have this chemical. I wish I could tell you and remember. I'll have to look up after we're done and research. And I meant to do that, but I just completely forgot. I didn't get around to it. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting. That the student was kind of saying, I think there's a lot out there that we really don't know of. And it goes back to what you were saying, like the government, who knows, like GMO and what we're being fed and all these pesticides and all that kind of stuff. It's really interesting, but yeah, that kind of scared me. So anyway, the reason why I'm bringing all that up is because lately I've been seeing an influx of people complaining about gluten and celiac disease and things that are really just becoming very prevalent. Do you find that too in your training and working with folks?
So people are always going to be confused because the information that we get, it's never complete. I can't say never, but usually it's not complete, and it starts with a premise that's maybe an untruth as it is. I think, I kind of stated that I feel like a lot of the good research we will never even see, again, because of money and who's benefiting from us knowing it or not knowing it. Yeah. So you really have to do your own research. But the gluten specifically, you're only going to find gluten in grains. And I do feel like grains are something that I try to minimize as much as possible because of all the polyunsaturated fat. And a lot of times when studies are done, they don't isolate, let's say sugar. Like sugar has a terrible rap. But typically when they do a study, they don't isolate sugar from grains, right? And so grains might be, which I believe they are, the culprit that is causing all these negative things that sugar's getting blamed for. So, for example, like a diabetic, my father passed away just this year, and he, like I said, was a diabetic, and he had a heart problem. And for years, he was saying, I can't have that, it's too much sugar, blah, blah, blah. But then come to find out, fructose is the number one thing that they should be eating because it doesn't raise insulin levels like other things, specifically grains. So grains, again, being full of polyunsaturated fat, those have been proven to be very inflammatory and wreak havoc on our bodies. And yet we keep talking about, but whole grains, and make sure that you get beans and, all these things that are full of polyunsaturated fats. So what is going on? And so I eat tons of sugar, and it's so confusing for people because, one, you turn this way and you can't have sugar and you can't have dairy and you can't have, coffee and caffeine and, and then you turn this way and it's like, no, you should eat this. And you should, you just don't get a solid answer that's consistent. So it's no doubt everybody's just kind of throwing their hands up, and hopefully little by little we can start to change that. But again, children are sugar burners. Our liver needs fructose and sucrose to be able to transform, our cholesterol into those sex hormones and the things that are good that will decrease the stress.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Everybody's trying to stay away from it.
Yeah, because I think, like, when you shared your story with me the very first time about how you were having all those symptoms that were happening, this is before you met Kate and read her book, that, I think you had mentioned that you were going to doctors and they were like just shaking their head and kind of saying, well, I don't know what it is, or they weren't being able to diagnose it. And I keep hearing this over and over from clients and just people in this industry, just that just horror stories. I'm not trying to pick on doctors or single them out, but I'm just saying that it does seem like there is something there with a generalization where doctors just kind of want to get you in there and tell you what it isn't, or write you a prescription, or
Right.
just get you out of there because the insurance
Right.
only pays for so much time. That's the unfortunate thing.
Right.
They're not going to incentivize themselves to be there to be charity or to give you their free time. Some doctors, I shouldn't say that, just general. I'm just generalizing, right? But yeah,
No.
you know what I'm saying. Like, and it goes
Oh
back to your
yeah.
story too. And then finally you were able to pretty much. It sounds like from deductive reasoning, you solved that puzzle yourself. You definitely solved that mystery that was going on in your own life. It looked like.
Well, I mean, it's going to be a lifelong journey,
Yeah.
because everything in life is going to change, right? You're going to go through periods of high stress and low
Uh huh.
stress, and and basically everything is stress, though. So, even stress is not bad, but I mean, even using your brain, that's stressful, right? And then exercising is stressful, and we can have financial stress and emotional stress and all these things, right? Just being alive is a stress on the body. So, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not like we're not supposed to have stress. We
Mm-hmm.
have to have stress. But the idea is that when the stress becomes, again, so bad that it doesn't fluctuate, now we have a problem. And, I'm not going to blame everything on doctors, because they're also faced with the fact that, let's say person with high cholesterol, thinking that that's bad for them, goes to the doctor. Well, if the doctor turns around and says, well, everything that you think is the right way to go is the wrong way to go, and sends them on their way without some kind of medication, I mean, that person is probably, they don't have a clue where to go, what to
Yeah.
start with, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so doctors don't study nutrition for the most part, and then to also have bad research, get their information from somewhere that's not right. The best answer for them, quick response, would be take this medication, because that's easier than me telling you you need to change the way you live your life, you need to cut out stress in your life, you need to change your diet, and know how all that's going to affect you, right? Because us in the fitness world, that we're trying to help people lose weight most of the time, and most of the time they don't change their diet, right? So I mean, it's harder, be hard for a doctor to tell them the right things to do, because it's not an easy path. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
a pill, right? So the pill's the easy way to go.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right, and I think I see what you're saying. Like doctors, again, to defend them here, that probably it becomes one of those things where they're just like, well, I can't change it me alone, and so I just got to play this game and just do it the way it is and cookie cutter it and say, okay, here you go, here's how it's. So again, yeah, I see what it's much bigger issue, I guess, than with one medical doctor being the solution, be all end all, but.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's our job, I guess, in the fitness industry to help educate them and teach them about cellular biology, which you've done a wonderful job today in doing so, like you always do. But I'm really impressed. And so I guess, Catherine, one last question before we get to your contact information. What are, I guess, I don't know, the top 2 or 3 best pieces of advice or suggestions you can give people if they're watching when it comes to cholesterol in general? Like, what can you tell them to finish it off and summarize and conclude?
Well, I can tell you to do your own research.
Yeah. Yeah.
Start with some of those things that I already listed.
Yeah.
But then, if you want simple, if you want the pill is eat your coconut oil, eat your fruit and sugar, table
Yeah.
sugar, and make sure you have downtime. Try to decrease your stress.
Yeah.
That's your magic pill.
Absolutely. I like that. Yeah, definitely. That's very well said. Yeah. Certainly, and that'll hopefully help with stress too, because you're right. What you just said, a lot of people have it, and that's okay. It's not there is good stress too, so that's even better. But Kat, this is wonderful. This is always such a great time to chat with you and get some information. This 30 minutes flew by so fast. Let me ask you a couple more questions before we get going. What's you've shared with me, some great fitness knowledge and nutritional information that you have. So if anybody wants to expound on that and get in touch with you directly and pick your brain, or learn anything else and talk to you, what's the best ways they could reach you directly?
Sure, I'll give you my personal email this time. It's
Yeah.
Catherine, CSCS, as in Catherine Sam, at gmail.com. So it's Catherine, CSCS at gmail.com.
Perfect. We'll throw that up on the screen when we fade to black momentarily. Well, that's terrific, Catherine. Again, you're amazing, and just keep doing the awesome job you're doing. What's on the plans and the agenda for the rest of the week? I think you mentioned possibly a festival in Kennesaw.
Yeah, maybe they're having a Pigs and Peaches festival, which sounded kind of fun. So
That
who
does
knows?
sound.
Well, maybe I'll venture up there. But But Taryn, thanks for having me. It's great to just come on, and hopefully it will help somebody start a different path that'll really help them
I
heal.
think so. Yeah, I really do. I think you've given us a lot to think about after they watch and listen to this. I think you should definitely be getting some people contacting you because there's something there for sure. So, yeah, it's a matter of just getting the right information. I think you're the person to get them started and guided in the right path.
Thanks. I hope so.
Well, thank you, Catherine, and I can't wait to do this again with you next time. And I can't wait to see you again in person in a couple months, too, at GSU. So thank you for that, as always. So have a wonderful rest of your weekend. And
Thanks, you too.
Likewise, thank you, and thanks for your time. And as we fade to black, here comes your personal email as we let you go. We'll see you, Catherine.
My pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you.